In this video, we can discuss on regression. We'll solve a question on how we can compute the Karl Pearson Correlation Covariance. So the Karl Pearson Correlation Covariances is also known as the Pearson Correlation Covariances. For more on this, you need to subscribe to this channel. Solutions. The first thing to do is to write the covariances of x1y, x2y, and x1, x2. So the covariance of x1y is the same thing as the Pearson's correlation of x1y, which is equal to n summation x1y minus summation of x1 summation of y all over summation of n multiplied by summation of x1 squared minus summation of x1 all squared multiplied by n summation of y squared minus summation of y all squared. So this is the covariance of x1, y. This is how we can obtain it. Now, we'll also find the covariance of x2y, x2y, which is the same thing as Pearson's correlation of x2y, which is equal to n summation x2y minus summation of x2 summation of y all over square root of n summation of x2 squared minus summation of x2 all squared multiplied by n summation of y squared minus summation of y all squared. So this is how we can compute the covariance of x2y. For more on this topic, you need to subscribe to this channel. The next thing to do is to compute the covariance of x1, x2, which is the same thing as the Pearson's correlation of x1 and x2, which is equal to n summation x1, x2 minus summation of x1, summation of x2 all over square root of n summation of x1 minus summation of x2 all squared, summation of x1 all squared multiplied by n summation of x2 squared minus summation of x2 all squared. So this is what we get. The next thing to do is to now compute the table, is to write out the table properly. So we come over here, the table. We have x1, we have x2, and we have y. So we rule our line. X1 is 1, 2, 3, and 4. X2 is 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Y is 5, 10, 15, 20. 5, 10, 15, and 20. If you look at, we have x1 squared, we have x1 squared, we have x2 squared, we also have y squared. So we look for all of these things. So we write x1 squared, x2 squared, and y squared. We also have x1y, x1y. We have x1y. We have x2y, x2y. We also have x1, x2. So we look out for all of this to get the total. We look out for all of them. Now, x1 squared, x1 squared, the whole of this, we square all the values here. We have 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. x2 squared, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, y squared is 25, 10 squared is 100, 15 squared is 225, 20 squared is 400. x1 y, x1 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 5 is 5, 2 multiplied by 10, 2 multiplied by 10 is 20, 3 multiplied by 15 is 45, 3 multiplied by 15 is 45, 4 multiplied by 20 4 multiplied by 20 is 80. x2y, 5 multiplied by 5 is 25, 6 multiplied by 10 is 60, 7 multiplied by 15 is 105, 8 multiplied by 20 is 160. x1 multiplied by x2 is 5. x1 multiplied by x2, 2 multiplied by 6 is 12. 3 multiplied by 7 is 21. And 4 multiplied by 8 is 32. All we need to do is to find the total of all of this. We find the total. 7, 9, 10. 8, okay, 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8, 26. 5 plus 10 plus 15 plus 20 is 50. This is 20 and 30. 25 plus 36 plus 49 plus 64 is 174. 25 plus 100 plus 225 plus 400 is 750. 5 plus 20 plus 45 plus 80 is 150. 25 plus 60 plus 105 plus 160 is 350. 5 plus 12 plus 21 plus 32 is 70. So once we get all of this, it's just to write out the total. Once we get all of this, 70, 350, 150, 750, 174, 30, 50, 26, 10. The next thing to do is to write out the sum of all of this. We'll put it out here. So we'll put out the sum here. We move over to this side. For more on this topic, you need to subscribe to this channel. Now, all of these are the sum. So we'll write out the sum here before we can calculate for the covariances. So the sum of x1 is equal to 10. The sum of x2 is equal to 26. The sum of y is equal to 50. The sum of x1 squared is equal to 30. The sum of x2 squared, the sum of x2 squared is equal to 174. The sum of y squared is equal to 750. The sum of x1 y is equal to 150. The sum of x2 y is equal to 350. The sum of x1 x2 is equal to 70. Now we have n to be 1, 2, 3, 4. N is equal to 4. Once we have all of this information, it will be very easy for me to compute the covariances. So computing the covariances is quite easy when we've gotten all of this information. Now all these informations are here. So we'll have to delete the whole of this so that we calculate the covariances individually. Now, we move over to this side of the board. For more on this topic, you need to subscribe to this channel. Now we write out the covariance of x1y. The covariance of x1y, like we've written before, is the same thing as summation of x1y minus summation of x1 summation of y all over square root of n summation of x1 squared minus summation of x1 all squared into n summation of y squared minus summation of y all squared. So this is what we have. Of course, our covariance of x1y will now be equal to n. We have our n to be 4. Our n is 4. So we have 4 into x1y. x1y is 150. 150 minus summation of x1. Summation of x1 is 10 multiplied by summation of y, which is 50. All over square root of. Now we have n, which is 4, into summation of x1 squared x1 squared is 30 minus summation of x1, just x1 all squared, which is 10 squared multiplied by 4 summation of y squared. Summation of y squared is 750. 750 minus summation of y all squared. Summation of y all squared. Summation of y, which is 50 all squared, which is equal to, we use our calculator. Now we have 450, 4 multiplied by 150 minus 10 multiplied by 50. We get 100 all over the square root of, now we do this, 4 into 30 minus 10 squared multiplied by 4 into 750 minus 50 squared is equal to 10,000. Now, square root of 10,000 is equal to 100. So this can cancel this, meaning that our covariance of x1y is equal to the Pearson's correlation of x1y is equal to 1. So it's equal to 1. So the covariance of x1y is equal to 1 for this. We'll now move on to calculate for the covariance of x2y. We'll still use this other side of the board. So this is our answer for the covariance of x1y. We have to calculate for the covariance of x2y. The covariance of x2y the covariance of x2y, it can be written as n into summation of x2y minus summation of x2 summation of y all over square root of n into summation of x2 squared minus summation of x2 all squared into n summation of y squared minus summation of y all squared. So the next thing to do is to impute the values. We have n to the 4. We have n to the 4. 4 multiplied by x2y. x2y is 350 minus x2, summation of x2, summation of y. Summation of x2 is 26. 26 multiplied by summation of y. Summation of y, 50. All over the square root of, we now have n, which is 4, multiplied by x2 squared, which is 174 minus x2 26 all squared multiplied by n, which is 4, summation of y squared, which is 750 minus summation of y, which is 50 all squared. So we'll take our calculator to compute that. So we have 4 multiplied by 350 minus 26 times 50. It will still give us 100 all over square root of 4 into 174 minus 26 squared multiplied by 4 into 750 minus 50 squared. Still gives us 10,000. So we have 100 all over. Square root of 10,000 is 100. It then means that covariance of x2y, which is the same thing as the Pearson correlation of x2y, is equal to 1. The next thing to calculate is the covariance of x1 and x2. For more on this topic, you need to subscribe to this channel. We also calculate that here. So we have to delete this. We have to clean this to calculate the covariance of x1 and x2. So we have to delete this. For more on this topic, you need to subscribe to this channel. So the covariance of x1, x2 is equal to n summation x1, x2 minus summation of x1, summation of x2 all over summation of n into n summation x1 squared minus summation of x1 all squared into n summation of x2 squared minus summation of x2 all squared. So covariance of x1, x2 is equal to n is 4. 4 multiplied by x1, x2. x1, x2 is 70 minus summation of x1 is 10 multiplied by summation of x2 is 26 all over square root of n is 4 multiplied by x1 squared. x1 squared is 30 minus x1 all squared, which is 10 squared multiplied by n. We have n to the 4. 4 multiplied by x2 squared. x2 squared is 174. 174 minus x2 all squared, x2 26 all squared, 26 all squared. So this is what we get. We'll now use our calculator to check. So the first one will give us 70, 4 multiplied by 70 minus 10 multiplied by 26. This gives us 20 all over square root of 4 into 30 minus 10, 10 squared into 4 into 174 minus 26 squared, 400. So this is 20 and the square root of 400 is 20. So this can cancel this. It then means that our covariance for x1, x2, which is the same thing as the Karl or the Pearson correlation coefficient for x1, x2 is also equal to 1. So this is how we can compute the covariances or the correlation covariances for x1y, x2y, and x1, x2. For more on this topic, you need to subscribe to this channel.